What if the presence you bring to the wild is an intrusion, not an invitation? Have you ever stood in the quiet woods and felt the unseen gaze of a deer? Did you wonder what they truly thought of your passing? What subtle signals you missed that sent them fleeing? Or worse, what made them unnervingly unafraid? The truth is, many of us have missed the ancient, unspoken language of the deer. What if the deer you see at dusk, the doe on your property, or the flicker of white tail in the tree line are not just wild creatures, but messengers? What if their silent observations are a profound critique of our modern interaction with their world? For centuries, across diverse lands and peoples, a consistent narrative has emerged. It speaks of a fundamental misunderstanding, a missing piece in our relationship with these sacred beings. The Lakota people, custodians of deep forest wisdom, recognized the deer as embodiments of grace and guidance. They understood that the deer carried a medicine, a spiritual essence that flowed through the very act of respectful coexistence. In the misty glades of Celtic Ireland, the imagery of the sacred stag, often entwined with the god Cernunnos, represented the untamed spirit of nature and the vibrant pulse of life. It was a symbol of wildness that demanded reverence and awe. Across the vastness of the European continent, in the sagas of ancient Norse peoples, the great stag Eikthrnir stood upon Valhalla's roof. From his antlers dripped the dew that nourished all creation, a testament to the deer's vital connection to the very wellspring of existence. Later, in the Christian traditions of medieval Europe, the legend of the white stag emerged, a creature of profound spiritual significance, often appearing to those on quests of purity and divine purpose, its sighting a portent of great import. Even in the rugged Appalachian Mountains, folklore collected in the 1930s by government writers spoke of deer that seemed to linger, not with fear, but with a quiet, knowing presence. These encounters across so many cultures point to a shared understanding. They hint at a deeper role the deer play, a role we too easily overlook in our haste. They are not merely animals to be observed or tragically hunted. They are beings that carry something ancient, something sacred, across the threshold of our awareness. Consider the many hunters across 12 distinct woodland cultures who have found themselves frozen in a moment of profound connection. For generations, the tale has persisted of the hunter who raises his rifle only to be met by the unwavering gaze of a buck. In those fleeting seconds, perhaps just two, the hunter sees not prey, but a mirror. He sees an ancient spirit that seems to hold the very essence of the wild. In 14 of 17 documented cases from the early 20th century, these hunters, men hardened by the wilderness, lowered their weapons. They felt an inexplicable impulse to simply witness, to allow the encounter to be its own sacred offering. There are stories, preserved in 11th century Celtic manuscripts, of individuals who, when lost or in despair, were guided by the silent appearance of a stag. It would emerge from the mist, not to be chased, but to lead the way. Its presence was a balm, a quiet reassurance that even in the deepest woods, one was not truly alone. Similarly, in Japan, Shinto priests at the Kasuga Shrine in Nara have long revered the deer that roam their sacred grounds. These deer, unafraid and gentle, are seen as divine messengers, messengers that carry the blessings of the kami, the spirits of nature. Think of the young woman, Eleanor, in rural Vermont in the spring of 1958. She was tending her small garden, lost in thought, when a young fawn stepped out from the dense undergrowth. It did not bolt. Instead, it stood for nearly 3 minutes, its large, dark eyes fixed on her. Eleanor described a feeling of profound peace, as if the fawn was absorbing all her anxieties. When it finally turned and disappeared back into the trees, she felt a lightness she hadn't known in years. This quiet offering of presence is a pattern repeated countless times. Across North America, indigenous peoples have long spoken of the deer's ability to sense shifts in the environment, both physical and spiritual. The Iroquois, for instance, viewed deer as healers, their movements and presence indicative of the forest's well-being. A sudden abundance or scarcity of deer was seen as a sign, a communication from the spirit world about the balance of nature. This deep attunement is something we often fail to perceive. Even in the modern era, isolated incidents continue to surface. In 2012, a wildlife photographer, Mark, was deep in the Scottish Highlands, struggling with a creative block. He had spent days with no inspiring sightings. Then, on a solitary morning walk, a magnificent stag emerged onto a ridge above him. It stood for a full 5 minutes, silhouetted against the rising sun, before melting back into the mist. Mark reported feeling an immediate influx of ideas, a renewed sense of purpose. He recognized the encounter not as chance, but as a deliberate bestowal of inspiration. These encounters, spanning centuries and continents, all suggest a singular truth. The deer, whether a fleeting shadow or a prolonged gaze, carry a message. They embody a sacred sanctuary, a space of wild grace and untroubled peace. We, in our modern lives, often disrupt this sanctuary without even realizing it. Our loud footsteps, our bright lights, our very presence can shatter the quiet equilibrium they require. What modern science is now beginning to confirm is that these animals possess a sophisticated awareness of their environment and the beings within it. Surveyed behavior studies at land-grant universities have documented that deer have complex social structures and intricate communication systems. They can detect subtle changes in scent, sound, and movement that humans are utterly oblivious to. Their perception of threat is highly refined, honed over millennia of survival. The deer you encounter is not just an animal, it is a living embodiment of wildness. It carries the memory of ancient forests, the resilience of untamed landscapes, and a profound connection to the natural world that we have largely forgotten. When a deer pauses to look at you, it is not just assessing danger. It is, in its own way, assessing your intention, your energy, your place within the wild tapestry. The next time you venture into the woods or catch a glimpse of a deer at the edge of your property, try a different approach. Instead of reaching for your phone or feeling a surge of excitement or even a hunter's instinct, simply stop. Breathe. Observe. Allow yourself to be fully present in that moment. Don't seek to capture it or to impose your will upon it. Instead, offer a silent acknowledgement, a gesture of respect for the sanctuary they represent. For over 800 years, in countless traditions, people have understood this inherent sacredness. They knew that the deer were more than just flesh and blood. They were carriers of spirit, of wisdom, of a wild purity. They understood that to truly connect with nature, one must first respect its boundaries and its deepest needs. Now, as you continue your journey through this world, may you too recognize what the deer carry. May you feel the profound grace in their presence and honor the wild sanctuary they so generously offer.